In a significant diplomatic development, the United States has announced visa sanctions against several Thai officials following the controversial deportation of 40 Uyghurs back to China. This decisive action reflects growing international concern over human rights violations faced by the Uyghur population, a predominantly Muslim ethnic group that has been subjected to persecution by the Chinese government. The sanctions mark a rare instance of punitive measures aimed at nations that have forcibly returned Uyghurs despite warnings of potential torture and imprisonment upon their return. The U.S. State Department's announcement came shortly after the European Parliament condemned Thailand's actions, urging the government to cease any further deportations of refugees to countries where their safety cannot be guaranteed. We are committed to combating China's efforts to pressure governments to forcibly return Uyghurs and other groups to China where they are subject to torture and enforced disappearances, said Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The specific identities of the sanctioned officials have not been disclosed, highlighting the sensitive nature of the issue. The implications of these sanctions extend beyond human rights concerns. They could also complicate Thailand's economic and diplomatic relations with the US and the European Union. Currently, Thailand grapples with a substantial $35 billion trade deficit with the US and is in the midst of negotiations for a free trade agreement with the EU. The Thai government has maintained that the deportation of the Uyghurs was in its best interest to avoid potential retaliation from Beijing, asserting that China had provided assurances regarding the safety of those deported. However, critics argue that these assurances are insufficient given the track record of human rights abuses against Uyghurs in China. According to various reports, the Chinese government has detained as many as 1 million Uyghurs in internment camps, implementing policies that include forced labor and systemic cultural suppression. Julian Kuo, a law professor at Hofstra University, described the U.S. visa restrictions as a pretty dramatic step, noting that such sanctions on third-party countries are rare and highlight the growing tension surrounding China's influence. The Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs responded to the sanctions by reiterating its commitment to humanitarian principles, emphasizing its long-standing tradition of providing assistance to displaced individuals. Thai officials have also indicated plans to visit the deported Uyghurs in China, aiming to assess their well-being firsthand. Yet the government's stance has drawn criticism both domestically and internationally, with many calling for a re-evaluation of Thailand's refugee policies in light of the potential risks faced by repatriated individuals. As the global community continues to scrutinize China's treatment of the Uyghurs, this incident underscores the complex interplay between human rights advocacy and international diplomacy. The fallout from these sanctions may reverberate across Southeast Asia, prompting other nations to reconsider their own policies regarding refugee treatment and relations with China. The situation remains fluid, and as countries navigate these challenging dynamics, the future of the Uyghurs remains uncertain, raising critical questions about accountability and the international response to human rights violations. In a significant shift that underscores the increasing control of religious expressions in China, the China Islamic Association has rebranded, officially removing its traditional Islamic symbols from its online presence. This change is part of a broader campaign by the Beijing government to sinicize religions, a move that analysts warn may alienate ordinary Muslims and foster a sense of cultural erasure. Historically, the China Islamic Association has served as a semi-official representative of the Muslim community in China. Until recently, its online platforms prominently featured a distinct green logo adorned with Islamic symbols, including a mosque dome topped by a crescent moon. However, as of late February, the association has adopted a new design that replaces these traditional elements with a simpler blue logo that features only the Chinese characters of the group's name. This redesign coincided with the start of Ramadan on February 28, a period of deep spiritual significance for Muslims around the world. According to Xinlu Liang, a journalist in Beijing, the removal of these symbols reflects a heightened effort by the Chinese government to integrate Islam and other religions into a framework that aligns with state ideology. While Beijing promotes the idea of religious harmony, such a rebranding may provoke suspicion and a feeling of cultural loss among ordinary Muslims, Liang noted. The timing of the rebrand just before Ramadan may further complicate its reception within the Muslim community. The China Islamic Association has not commented on the changes, leaving many questions unanswered about the motivations behind this initiative. Observers suggest that the rebranding could be seen as part of a larger trend in which the government exerts greater influence over religious practices and identities, aiming to present a unified national identity that downplays ethnic and religious differences. This development is emblematic of the ongoing tensions between state authority and individual religious expression in China. As the government continues to tighten its grip on various religious groups, the implications for the Muslim community could be profound. Analysts fear that such actions may not only alienate Muslims but also undermine efforts to integrate Islam more fully into Chinese society, potentially leading to increased social friction. Looking ahead, the future of religious practice in China remains uncertain as the government continues to advance its Sinicization policies. The extent to which these changes will affect the daily lives of Muslims and their ability to express their faith openly will be closely observed in the months to come. With Ramadan already underway, the community's response to the rebranding will likely reveal deeper sentiments about their place within the rapidly evolving landscape of Chinese society. In a landscape marked by rising geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainty, China's economic indicators are revealing a complex narrative of resilience and challenge. As the country grapples with the fallout from a renewed trade war initiated by U.S. President Donald Trump, recent data suggests that while growth remains steady, underlying weaknesses persist, particularly in consumer spending and industrial production. In February 2025, bank lending in China slowed more than expected, a reflection of the broader economic climate exacerbated by tariffs that have heightened uncertainties for businesses and consumers alike. This slowdown comes as financial institutions navigate a landscape where interest in new loans is tempered by cautious optimism about future economic conditions. The People's Bank of China is likely to consider these trends as it evaluates its monetary policy in the coming months. Despite these headwinds, forecasts for the first 2 months of 2025 indicate that China's economy has shown signs of stability. According to a Bloomberg survey, retail sales are projected to rise by 3.8% year-over-year, slightly above the 3.5% increase recorded for the entirety of 2024. Industrial production is expected to grow by 5.3%, albeit a reduction from last year's overall rate of 5.8%. Economists at Citigroup noted, "We expect steady readings for major activity indicators for the first 2 months this year, with trade headwinds yet to materialize." The recent trade war, characterized by President Trump's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese exports, poses significant challenges to China's growth ambitions. The Chinese government has maintained an optimistic annual growth target of approximately 5% for 2025 despite the unfavorable external market conditions. Analysts remain skeptical about whether stimulus measures such as the recently announced 300 billion renminbi, approximately $41.4 billion trade-in program will be sufficient to invigorate domestic consumption and overcome the structural barriers that have been hampering growth. Consumer confidence appears to be waning, with inflation dipping into negative territory for the first time since 2021. Early year data revealed an unexpected 8.4% decline in imports, underscoring weak domestic demand. Consumer spending was the weakest area, with retail sales slowing despite a lift from holiday-related demand over the Lunar New Year, noted Bloomberg economists Chong Shu and David Chu. They highlighted the challenges ahead, stating the 5% growth target for 2025 still looks challenging. On the investment front, fixed asset investment is anticipated to remain stable, showing a growth of 3.2% in the first 2 months, consistent with last year's performance. The ongoing crisis in the housing market, which has significantly impacted consumer wealth and spending, continues to pose a major risk to economic stability. However, government interventions aimed at stabilizing the property sector appear to be yielding some positive results, with a gradual easing of the decline in new home prices. Amidst these economic challenges, China is also pivoting towards enhancing regional relationships through infrastructure projects. Recent developments include the construction of several cross-border railway lines aimed at strengthening trade ties with neighboring countries in Southeast and Central Asia. These initiatives are seen as strategic moves to bolster regional connectivity and mitigate the impact of external pressures, particularly from the US-China trade conflict. As Kyle Freeman, a partner at Dazan Shira and Associates, pointed out, it makes sense that countries want to increase trade and transport connections with the largest economy in the region. Looking ahead, the interplay of domestic economic policies and international relations will be crucial in determining China's economic trajectory. As the government strives to stimulate consumption and investment while navigating the complexities of global trade dynamics. The upcoming releases of economic data will be closely monitored for indications of how resilient China truly is in the face of mounting challenges. The next few months will be pivotal in shaping the narrative of an economy at a crossroads, balancing growth ambitions against the backdrop of an evolving global landscape. In recent weeks, geopolitical tensions in the Asia-Pacific region have escalated, drawing sharp responses from both the United States and China. With the Philippines declaring China its greatest security threat and an alarming case of espionage involving U.S. military personnel, the implications of these developments stretch far beyond national borders, raising critical concerns about regional stability and international security. On March 14, 2025, The Hill published a compelling call for a national economic security strategy in the United States aimed at countering China's growing influence. This plea comes in the wake of escalating tensions, particularly in the South China Sea, where China's military encroachments have alarmed its neighbors. The Philippines Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro emphasized that Chinese aggression poses a significant threat to national security, stating, "The greatest external threat actually is Chinese aggression, Chinese expansionism, and the attempt by China to change the international law through the use of force or acquiescence." This rhetoric underscores a stark shift in how regional actors perceive China's assertive posture. In a direct response, Colonel Zhang Xiaojiang of China's Ministry of National Defense warned the Philippines against what he termed risky and futile provocations. He asserted that China holds indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea, framing the nation's military maneuvers as essential to maintaining peace and stability in the region. Zhang accused the Philippines of infringing upon China's sovereignty, suggesting that external influences are exacerbating tensions. The colonel's remarks serve as a stark reminder of the delicate balance of power in the region, where military posturing can quickly escalate into broader conflicts. Meanwhile, on March 14, 2025, revelations of a significant espionage case further highlighted the security challenges posed by China. 2 active-duty U.S. soldiers along with a former soldier were arrested for conspiring to sell classified military information to Chinese agents. The Department of Justice detailed how these individuals were involved in transmitting sensitive data related to U.S. military operations for financial gain, potentially compromising national security. FBI Special Agent Mike Harrington remarked on the pervasive threat posed by China, stating, "The threat from China remains particularly pervasive across multiple different domains. This incident not only raises alarms about internal security but also emphasizes the vulnerability of military operations to foreign infiltration." In a related diplomatic context, the Chinese embassy in Canada recently held a reception celebrating the 97th anniversary of the People's Liberation Army (PLA). The event, attended by officials from various countries including Canada, highlighted China's emphasis on military modernization and its commitment to national sovereignty. Senior Colonel Li Yao articulated the PLA's role in safeguarding China's core interests, notably regarding Taiwan, and emphasized the need for increased military exchanges to foster stability amid differing perceptions. As the geopolitical landscape continues to shift, the interplay between military actions and diplomatic efforts will be crucial in determining the future of U.S.-China relations and regional dynamics. The call for a robust national economic security strategy in the United States reflects a growing recognition of the need for a comprehensive approach to countering China's influence while ensuring the security of allies in the Asia-Pacific. Observers will be watching closely to see how these developments unfold and whether diplomatic dialogues can de-escalate tensions that threaten regional and global stability. In a significant crackdown on cybercrime, China has successfully repatriated nearly 3,000 suspects linked to telecom fraud from Myanmar, highlighting a robust cooperative effort between Chinese authorities and their Southeast Asian counterparts. The recent transfer of 2,255 Chinese nationals from Myanmar's Mayawati region was reported by China's Ministry of Public Security, bringing the total number of suspects returned to 2,876 since the campaign began earlier this year. Mayawati, located along the Thai border, has gained notoriety as a hub for large-scale online scams that have victimized individuals across Asia. Chinese authorities have indicated that these scam rings often exploit Thailand as a trafficking route, with many victims being transported across the border to work in illegal scam operations. The latest group of repatriated suspects was escorted back to China via chartered flights following a preliminary transfer of 200 individuals in February. This operation serves as a strong deterrent against foreign criminal groups targeting Chinese citizens, stated a report from the People's Daily, the official newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party. The coordinated efforts reflect China's commitment to eliminating what it perceives as safe havens for criminals operating abroad, particularly those involved in cybercrime. The repatriation initiative comes amid growing concerns over the increasing prevalence of online scams that have seen a surge in victims, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Chinese government has faced mounting pressure to address these crimes, which not only harm individuals but also tarnish the nation's international reputation. By actively pursuing these suspects, China aims to project a strong stance against cybercrime and reassure its citizens about their safety. This operation is part of a broader strategy that involves collaboration with neighboring countries including Thailand and Myanmar. The success of such international cooperation could potentially pave the way for more extensive regional agreements aimed at combating transnational crime. China's approach may also influence other nations grappling with similar issues, showcasing the importance of joint efforts in addressing cross-border criminal activities. As this crackdown unfolds, it remains to be seen how effective these measures will be in curbing the influence of cyber criminals in the region. The implications of these actions are profound, not only for China but also for its relationships with neighboring countries as they grapple with the complexities of law enforcement across borders. The ongoing developments in this area could signal a shift in how nations cooperate in the fight against cybercrime, potentially redefining international protocols for repatriation and legal accountability. Looking ahead, as China continues to strengthen its diplomatic ties and enhance its security framework, the focus will likely remain on not only repatriating suspects but also on preventing these criminal networks from re-emerging. The success of these initiatives may influence the global narrative around cybercrime and security, setting a precedent for other nations to follow in the coming years.